What's up, fight fans? This is Kurt Taville with Counterpunch Boxing News, and I have some new news concerning Andy Ruiz and Oleksandr Usyk. You know, I was asked tonight, how would Oleksandr Usyk match up against Andy Ruiz? Especially the newfound Andy Ruiz, the guy that has a weight loss program. He might be a little faster. He might be a little sharper. He's learning things from Canelo Alvarez to, so how would he match up against somebody like Oleksandr Usyk? And shout out to Joseph Adetola, okay? Joseph Adetola, he says, Kurt, how would you fancy an Andy Ruiz versus Usyk fight? They are both smaller heavyweights, quick, agile, and can throw combinations. I think that would be one hell of a fight. Counterpunch to you, Joseph. Now, let me counterpunch. I think this is the best example and test for Andy Ruiz now. Okay, that would be his kryptonite. It's like going to Canelo and the Reynosos. You know, they have pretty much attempted to give him some vaccine for these type of fighters. Let's see if it works. Why? Because the kryptonite for Andy Ruiz is somebody that can box and move. Okay, and Oleksandr Usyk can do exactly that. He can box, he can move, he can throw combinations, he can parry, he can dodge, he can dip, he can weave, he can bob. Okay, he can parry, he can do it all. And with Andy Ruiz, it won't be his combinations or his upper body movement. He's always had that. He's had that before he went to Reynosos. The thing I want to look for is in Andy Ruiz, will Andy Ruiz know how to cut the ring off? Because he's going to have to do that fighting someone like Usyk, fighting someone like Joshua, the style that he used, fighting someone like Joseph Parker, which he was his first loss. It was a split decision, but it was still a loss nonetheless, because Joseph Parker knew how to box and he knew how to move. He never really stayed in one place. He threw combinations at certain places and he watched out for the counter, because that's what Andy Ruiz was after. He was looking for those holes. He was looking for those opportunities to counter. He had beautiful combinations. But the problem is, if someone's constantly moving, it's hard to put these combinations together when they're moving, especially with some power. I'm doing this and it appears easy, but I'm not throwing anything behind it. You got to throw body in there, okay? And then a lot of times, fighters, to get that right punch, you gotta step on it. You gotta step on that punch, okay? You have to put something behind it. How do you do that? With your weight. Okay, so I believe that when Andy Ruiz can show me that he can cut off the ring, because that's what's going to happen. I don't know if his foot speed will be any better. If he sits down on those punches, it's going to be at expense of losing speed. You see what I'm saying? So those type of guys will always be a problem for Andy Ruiz, just like they'll be a problem for Canelo. Canelo has great upper body movement. You know, he can dip, he can slip. He can do a lot of things in there. And he showed us over the last 5-6 years that he's getting better. But is he really getting better? And the same thing, I've done a video about Canelo. Now I'm talking about Ruiz. Is he better? That's the question. And Oleksandr Usyk could be that guy to give us that answer. Because if he can't cut off the ring, if he can't keep up with boxers and outwork boxers, a lot of times we've seen that in the Joshua fight. He could not keep up with Joshua. And he's not a pure boxer. He's a counterpuncher. He waits for openings and opportunities given from the other party. Okay? So he has to slip. He has to slip something to counter it, right? So they have to give him enough to slip and roll with. If no one gives you that, if they're just, bam, they're sticking you from the outside like Lara was doing Canelo or Joshua was doing himself, Andy Ruiz, it's going to be a difficult time. But what you have to do is partially what Canelo attempted to do with Lara. Work the damn body. Work the body, and you work that body, the legs will go, and then sooner or later, the heart will go, and then sooner or later, the head will go. You got to break it down in segments. Okay, that's how you do it. So other than that, that's going to be a fight. Will it be a good fight? Yeah. But I see Andy Ruiz because I'm looking at Andy Ruiz in the Joshua fight, and I shouldn't do that because I want to believe that, hey, he's learned something. But how much of an experienced dog, not necessarily an old dog, but an experienced dog, can you teach really new tricks? That's the question. Not saying he can't, but I'm just saying, will he know how to do these things that he couldn't do before? Because now he's been beaten twice, both by boxers. He beat Joshua. Joshua decided, okay, I'm going to box you. And he didn't have an answer for it. He didn't really have an answer for Joseph Parker. He just threw combinations whenever he could when Joseph Parker stood still long enough. He did the same thing and attempted the same thing in Anthony Joshua in the second fight when he was the unified champion. But he couldn't keep that up because he was constantly trying to move. That guy was moving. Joshua was back, you know, and it was frustrating him. And he found himself following these guys. So the question is, has Andy learned enough to not follow these guys that can punch around? Counterpunch. So we know what Oleksandr Usyk can do. Yes, he didn't look great in his last performance, but Chisora knew how to cut off the ring because he's that type of dude. He's not that type of dude that waits for beautiful counters. No, he's coming at you. And him coming at Oleksandr Usyk was some of the reason he had success. Okay? The question is, will Andy Ruiz do that and still implement his own style into that come forward, cutting off the ring approach with fighting Oleksandr Usyk? That's the question. But, hey, a good matchup. You guys tell me what you think about Andy Ruiz versus Oleksandr Usyk. Of course, please subscribe. And you guys been Counterpunch. Peace.